Hey guys, thanks so much for stopping by my channel today. I really appreciate you spending a little bit of your time with me. My name's Tammy and I own a small bath and body company here in the Midwest, Indiana that is. And today I want to share with you basically a reformulation that I did with my soap recipe. I'm going to share my recipe with you guys, and I'm also going to share, I don't know, it's not going to be like a tutorial. I want to do more of a beginner's soap video. And so hopefully the ones that have been around and you have been a long time soap maker, you won't find this too boring. So today's soap, I am going to be using lavender and spring apricot. I get this from Micah's and More. My goodness, guys. This is so interesting of a scent. I don't see lavender as being a real floral scent. I feel like it's more earthy. And sometimes it can have a little bit of a bite to it, which is all good things, right? But the spring apricot part of this is quite sweet. So you've got this earthy, a little bit of floral, a little bit of sweet. It's just a really well-balanced scent. I cannot wait to see what it does in soap. So guys, the first thing you need to do when you are getting ready to make soap is to check out the IFRA document. And I will try to do a screenshot right here to show you what the IFRA document is. So you have different ratings. So 5 is going to be your lotions and face products and different things like that. You have A, B, and C. One of them is for children, one of them is for body, and one of them is for face. So your fragrance oil percentage that you're allowed to use in a face product may be lower than what you can use like on as a hand cream. That's what you look at when you're trying to add fragrance to a cream of sorts. So for soap, we look at 9. So 9 is going to be your soaps, your bath bombs, your sugar scrubs are considered a wash-off product. So if you're making something like that, that's what you look at to see how much of your fragrance you're allowed to add to your batch. So my batch weight of oils is roughly 105%. I will use anywhere from 5 to 6% of my fragrance oil. So I take 105%, times it by 5%, and that's how much oil, fragrance oil, I'm adding to my batch. I have stickers that you can download. So all you have to do is go add them to your cart and check out. It's the only way I know how to give this sticker to you. There's a couple different options. You can do a PDF and then just cut those out on sticker paper, or I saved it where you can upload that into Canva and you can change things around if you want. How much I'm allowed to put in a soap, whether it discolors, whether there's vanillin in it. So vanillin is the thing that's going to turn your soap dark, depending on how much vanillin it has. There's also an ethyl vanillin that is often not reported by your fragrance oil suppliers. And so it's not always 100% accurate if it has no vanillin that it won't discolor. I have had a 0 vanillin soap discolor quite significantly on me. It may have had quite a high amount of ethyl vanillin. Is a first impression guide on whether a soap will discolor or not. And I have other information on that label, and I stick that label on my bottles when they come in. And that is how I can pull this and say, okay, 13% soap. So that means I can go all the way up to 13% of my base oil weight. You do not want to put 13% fragrance oil in your soap. If your fragrance oil percentage is super high, stick with that 5 or 6%, guys. It's at that point you're wasting money. First things first, I'm going to get my hairnet on. I have my apron. I have long sleeves. I don't always wear long sleeves, guys. Do what I say, not what I do. You really do, especially if you're new or a klutz like me, you really should wear long sleeves. I have tennis shoes on, so I'm not going to spill anything on open toes and get a lye burn that way. I'll be wearing glasses and gloves. I don't want to scare anybody. Lye is not as scary as I first felt like it was, but it is not something you want to mess around with. And I have had soap batter come up and hit my glasses. So thank goodness I had glasses on when that soap butter came up and kind of splattered up into my face. I have had lye burns where I took a soapy hand and scratched my nose, and I had a huge lye burn on my face for several weeks because I didn't realize that my hand had soap on it. So it will burn you, and it's not pleasant. So be careful, and especially with your eyes. So let me bring the camera down and we will get started on this lovely soap. I cannot wait. So the first thing I'm going to do before I bring my oils over here is I'm going to get my colors ready. Not always, but I do try to mix my micas in a little bit of oil. So I am going to use this coral orange from Micas and More. I don't have my label printed yet, but that's what this is. And it's such a pretty orange. I haven't used it in soap yet, so I'm anxious to see what it looks like in soap. So I'm going to put about 3/4 teaspoon in there. And then I'm also going to be using Plum Purple from Micas and More. And if I remember right, this is a really pretty purple, and I'm almost out of it. All right, another 3/4 or so teaspoon in there. I have a bottle of olive oil. I like having just a small bottle of olive oil that I just can keep refilling, and that way I can just throw a little bit of olive oil in here. It's not going to change my formula enough to mess with the lye amount. It's just going to give it a little bit more of a lye discount. So I'm grabbing a couple of my smaller spatulas, and I'm just going to blend these. Now the mica, I can tell, is pretty fine, so I don't think this is going to be too much of a problem. And because the fragrance oil behaves so well, I probably could have added this in after the fact and just stick blended it in. But it is a good habit to get into, to mix your oil, your mica with some oils. So those are ready. I have my goat milk here, so this is ready. And I'm using 6 ounces of goat's milk for this size batch. Next, my lye water. It's got a little bit of lilac on it, and that is really not a big deal. It is fresh lye. I just made it, and it is now 88 degrees. So it's just now cooled down. It's fine. Maybe if it had sat overnight and it gets a really thick crust on top, I might strain it, but this will blend out just fine with the stick blender, so not anything to worry about. I am going to add 1.5 ounces of my sodium lactate in here. You could just add salt to the lye water, but I just find it easier to do the sodium lactate. It's not that expensive, and I just pay for it. But sodium lactate does not necessarily make a harder bar of soap. What it does is it makes your soap harder quicker so you can unmold it quicker. And I'm really pretty sure that that's most of what the sodium lactate will do. I do not believe, or at least I have read, that it doesn't make your bar harder in the long run. That comes down to your oil choices. The sodium lactate, again, I'll be able to unmold this tomorrow if I so choose. Sometimes people can unmold with 18 hours after making their soap. I like to wait a couple days. I think I get a cleaner cut when I wait a couple days, even with the sodium lactate. But, if I want to cut it tomorrow, I can, because it'll be hard enough. So just so you know, I do add sugar and citric acid to my lye water. So a lot of times it will have a bit of a yellow tone to color. That's probably, I believe, from the sugar more than anything, but maybe just the combination. That's why this looks yellow and not clear. But that is more advanced, and this is not what that video is about. So just kind of ignore the fact that this looks a little bit yellow. In here, I have my oils and butters all melted down and cooled back down. I'm going to leave all of the percentages and the amounts down below. This is roughly, again, 105 ounces of oil. I also have my kaolin clay in here. It just kind of gives the bar a bit of a smoother, nicer feel. Some people will put their essential oil blend in the kaolin clay and mix that up, and supposedly that helps the essential oil kind of hold in the soap, in with my goat milk as well. I guess I don't need my scale like I thought, because I already have my kaolin clay in here. So let me get rid of my scale. I don't need it. I need all the room I can get when I make soap. All right, the very last bit of my goat milk. So anytime you add a liquid, you want to reduce the amount of water that your batch calls for. So when I make soap, I do a 2-to-1. So whatever my lye is, I double that, and that's my water amount. So this lye amount was 15.29. I deduct my sodium lactate from my water amount. So my water amount after reducing the 1.5 ounces then became 29.13. Then I took out the 6 ounces of goat's milk. So my water amount was 23.13. Plus 6 ounces of goat milk plus 1.5 ounces of sodium lactate brings me to double whatever 15.29 is. Double that, and that's that amount. So that's how I do my lye water. It's easy and I don't have to think about it. I don't have any problems with it. Done. All right, so I'm going to stick my stick blender in here, tap it on the bottom a little bit, get any air pockets out, and I'm going to mix in my goat milk and my kaolin clay really quickly just to get that ahead of the game. All right, then I'm going to add in my lye water. Trying to go down the spoon so it doesn't make air bubbles. When I first started making soap, it was common for instructions to say soap at 120 degrees and soap at 110 degrees, and make sure your lye water and your soaping oils were within 10 degrees of each other. I spent more time stressing over that than anything else. My oils would get too hot and then I'd let them cool down, and then my lye water was too cold, so I had to figure out how to heat that up, and then my oils. It was just a non-stop stress over the temperature of both of these things. I don't stress about it anymore, and I certainly don't soap at 120 degrees. But I think anywhere between 85 and 100 is probably fine, depending on the recipe and what you're doing with it. And don't be too legalistic about being that close, because they're going to balance each other out. I just really never kind of understood the need for making them so close together back in the day, but I'm a rule follower. And if somebody says make sure they're within 10 degrees of each other, I'm usually going to do it. But it's really not something you have to stress about. Another thing that was often stated was to blend with your stick blender until you get to a trace. Don't do that, guys. Unless you're doing like a full-on layer, maybe. But it takes so much less stick blending than you actually think it's going to take. I probably did 5 to 7 seconds right there. And maybe it's not emulsified, which means all of the lye water and all of the oils have become one. It may not be there, but I'm going to be doing quite a bit of stirring. I may be doing more stick blending. I don't want to take this to trace yet. Then it's going to be super thick by the time I'm ready to pour it in the mold. So I'm going to stir it and then pour it into my little color jugs. Just pouring over the spatula helps keep it from getting too many air pockets in there. I don't stress too much about those. But any little bit will help with that. And I'm notorious for putting too much soap in here, so that was probably too much anyway. Alright, so I'm going to set this aside and come over here and stir these up. These are ready for fragrance oil and maybe another blast with the stick blender. This is ready for me to add some white. I'm going to pour off a little bit, just a tablespoon or two. And guys, this is just because I want to know how white my batter is with no color. I keep adding all of these micas and TD to them, and I haven't had a chance to do the color test yet. So this is a little TD or titanium dioxide, just in a little bit of oil. I blended that down with a Ninja Bullet. There we go. That's just going to make this extra white. And I need to weigh off my fragrance oil. Most of it goes in there. A little splash, a little splash. When you're doing a swirl, it really doesn't matter so much about your fragrance oil and how it's divvied up between the batters. Just eyeball it, guys. Don't stress. Choose your battles to stress over. That's not one of them, especially if they're just going to be all mixed together. Now I'm going to take my stick blender and just blend everything one more time. Not very long. I'm not going to speed this part up. Oop. You can kind of hear it when you have air pockets in there. So maybe another, 7 or 8 seconds. See all the bubbles coming up? And don't worry about transferring the colors from one pot to the other. That little bit of color really doesn't make a difference. All right, that is good there. Now my stick blender has 4 tines, or 4 tines. I don't know if you can see that. That makes it hard to clean, so I do have a little old lye container that has a wide mouth. A little bit of water in there. If I get to that quick enough, that makes that a lot easier to clean. All right, guys, my Winston & Walter mold. I love this mold. And this is a trace. So here, let me put this up. You can definitely see that there's batter on the top of the surface when I do that. So I'm going to go ahead and get this in. Here's the thing about trace though. I like a trace when I pour this kind of design. If you pour really at a very thin trace, then you're having much more wispy colors, and I just don't feel like they're as defined. I like a little bit of thickness, guys. And I just go the same direction back and forth. This is almost like the perfect apricot color. I'm gonna stir this and it'll loosen up for me. Back and forth, same direction. This is just my favorite pour. You can pour however you want. I'm going to save that much for piping. And before I add my white, because I do want to have a decent white layer on top, maybe I'm going to add a little bit of white here. Hang on. I think that's enough just to cover the top. I'm going to do my hanger tool. And my gear tie's dirty. I thought I had two, so I'm going to use this thinner hanger tool. I don't normally use a real thin wire like this, but my batter's thick. Let's give her a go. Let's see how it works. This is just, you know, up and down and circles. So let's do, I like to do up and down and then circle one way and maybe one circle the other way. So up and down, circle 2 or 3 times, and then one circle that way. Let's see how that looks. Circle and then one circle that way. Clean it off. So I'm just going to kind of spoon this on, trying to cover up all of that color there so that my piping stands out. I'm a little bit nervous about this color too, because it just doesn't seem very white. I didn't add a lot of TD, but it still feels like it's a very yellow batter. The more you scrape it, the easier it is to clean. So take your time and really get as much scraped as you can. I'm not really pushing it to spread it like a brownie pan. I'm just tapping it. That way I'm not bringing up that color from the bottom of underneath the white. Not really bringing that up too much. Okay, good enough. And I am going to tap it. That just gets any like air pockets to come to the surface. I didn't see any come, so I think I'm good there. And I have these like little craft sticks, and I'm just going to clean off the edges. And that just makes cutting nicer. If I wasn't going to be piping, I would take my skewer and just, if you've been around, you've seen me do it a lot, because that's what I do. I like to skewer the top just to make a little pattern in there. But I am piping. And I need to let these sit up just a little bit more before I get started on that. So I'm just going to let them sit there for a few minutes, maybe 5 or 10 is all I'm going to need. I'm going to clean up a little bit, and I am going to bring you back when I'm ready to put these in the piping bag. I think they're ready. So you can see, hopefully, that they hold its shape. I have a couple 12-inch bags here. I have a couple different open tips here. And I have a tiki cup from the Dollar Tree from years ago. I've had that thing forever. Getting these bags open is the worst. There we go. So this is the bigger one, and I have more orange, so orange is going to go in the bigger tip. I'm not the best piper. I'm not the one to like really teach you how to pipe. Maybe I'm the one to teach you how to pipe soap when you do not know how to pipe very well. I do not know how to pipe very well. I don't pipe like real flowers. I've tried. I can do a rose fairly well, I suppose. Those are actually kind of easy. They look hard, but they're fairly easy to do. There are certain soap makers out there that are just masterful at... Oh, I'm going to lose battery. I will be back in just a minute. All right, I'm back. My camera is well known for having a very, very sucky battery life. And I changed it right before I came down and started making soap tonight. But apparently that wasn't good enough. I mean, it's so frustrating, actually. All right, so I have my two soaps here ready to go. I don't know how full I'm going to make this. My last soap, I did the same thing. If I fill up the top, I'm happy. If I don't fill up the top, I'm happy. Stress-free piping is my new motto. But let me have a scraper here. And I'm just going to scrape it down. And clean off the top. And that will just allow me to have a bit of a cleaner go at it. Wrap it. And then, let's see, I'm just going to dollop. This probably will fill all of the soap up. My very novice recommendations or tips on piping, you want to be perpendicular too, so you don't want to lean and do it this way. That's not how you want to do it. You want to go straight up and down, squeeze and let off. And if you hold it down a little bit and squeeze, you'll get a little bit more round, like that. Or if you go real fast and you barely let it go down, you get a little pointy one. So we're going to do a couple bigger ones just because I have a lot of piping here. All right, let's put some purple in there. Squeeze it. You can get rid of some of the excess if you want by wrapping it around your forefinger. And this is stress-free, no skill required piping. I do love my little turnstile or whatever this is called. So you can really get, almost leave your hand where it is and get a better angle. Alright, I'm going to go back to the orange. I kind of like the fact that there's some white showing through. I really don't know that I'm going to fill this up, which makes it very difficult for me because that's leaving soap in my piping bags, and I'm not very good at that, guys. Honestly, I don't want to go anymore. I'm going to cover this, and I used to put this in the oven. So seed popping is what they call that. And you take your oven and put it to about 170 degrees Fahrenheit. When it gets hot, you turn it off. You put your soap in there. Sometimes you can leave your light on for a few hours or even overnight, but mostly just a few hours if you want. You don't even have to do that though. The next day, it is back down to room temperature, and then you can let it set and go all the way to room temperature. I would always kind of leave it another day or so, but you don't have to. And then you can cut it. I don't have an oven, so I have a heating pad, 90 minutes at level 6, the highest level, and that will do the best that I can to do my take on seed popping. I will cover it with 2 or 3 blankets to hold in all the heat. The wood holds in heat too. It's very conductive. I do have sugar and I do have goat milk in here, which also can raise the heat of my soaps. So I've never had a problem with my soap getting too hot and volcanoing. I've never ever had that happen unless I was making a hot process soap once. All right, guys, I am so happy with how that top turned out. I just think it's really quite pretty. But let's cut this and see what it looks like on the inside. And can I say, it smells so good. Aww, look how pretty, guys. I think that is so pretty. Oh, what do you think? I think that's pretty. I'm happy with it. Lots of swirls in that one. And I think the top is super pretty as well. Really nice, guys. Very, very, oh, that one's pretty. Really happy with it. I am going to be letting this dry for a couple days before I clean up the edges. It just makes the beveling just a little bit cleaner if I wait a couple days. I'm going to get this on the cure vac and we'll come back in a week or two. Take a look at the final color, see if there's any discoloration that may happen. And I'll give you my final thoughts. I have no memory of making this soap. It has been so long. But let's look at these swirls. Oh, goodness. I don't remember if this fragrance discolors. It has just been way too long since I even looked at any of that. But these swirls are so pretty. And even if it did discolor and I didn't use any color in the base, I honestly have no memory of this. I think whatever I did in the base is perfect. The orange and the purple are quite muted. The base color is a very maybe light tan in color or a dark cream or something. I don't know how to explain that. But I just think it is such a pretty color combination for this scent. It smells so dang good. Now, I do believe in the soap, it has lost a little bit of the sweet note that it has out of the bottle, which is very good because it was almost too sweet out of the bottle. In the soap, it's like perfect. It's just mellowed that out. It's still there, but it's just mellow and lovely. Check out that piping, guys. I am just tickled with the piping. I am just so happy with just how far I've come with my piping. I just am. I'm just really, really proud of myself. So there we go. There's that for you. Oh, it's a good one. Such a good one, guys. So I hope you enjoyed watching me make this soap, and I hope you will give me a thumbs up. If you did, you can give me a thumbs down. If you didn't, that's all right. Comment below, subscribe if you haven't already. See you next week. Bye.